Right, it's time to meet our guest, the sports blogger Lawrence McKenna. Now, we have to start with our top story and the major developments in the NFL. Now, what are your views on this particular story?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because concussion in sport is such a huge issue, not only in the NFL, but for the Premier League at the moment, and a lot of other sports where there's the possibility of contact. Basically, it comes down to putting a value on someone's health. And it's very difficult to do that because, if someone loses their life, which players have down the years, or people lose their quality of life, then how can you put a monetary value on that? And obviously with the ruling today, or the case ongoing, we're seeing that it's hard to put that value on it.
No.
What are you supposed to do about that?
What we said that before in the story, the NFL looks like they're going to pay out $1 billion. Do you think other sports will be keeping an eye on this case? I mean, for example, when it comes to rugby union, George North, he was concussed 3 times in, 4 months? Yeah. So they'll be keeping a close eye on this, right? Yeah, well, I mean, that's the interesting thing, is where the responsibility lies as well, is, whether it relies on the teams or the clubs, the actual association itself, or even, the idea that, if they're not diagnosed properly, then it rests with those people as well. So, basically, it's good of the NFL, or, it's good that the NFL is acknowledging this and taking on board the feedback from the players that, basically, if it does reduce your quality of life, then you have some sort of responsibility, basically. Why is it taking them so long to realise that, there's a link between playing this game and what retired players are going through right now? What was the wake-up call?
Money is sometimes the wake-up call. We operate within a market, obviously, especially within the NFL, which is an American sport in the first place. And so when people begin to put a monetary value on your health, and more people realise that you can either cash in, because some people, in a very cynical way, can be quite greedy in terms of using their health for getting certain things, and other people actually have lost a significant amount of, mental ability, or whatever you want to call it, then there's a lot to be said there for the NFL, and the fact that they're acknowledging it, and it's being brought forward now because medically it's hard to deny. There's a lot to applaud there, I think.
OK. Well, moving on to a different sport, completely different sport, cricket. Now, Stuart Broad doesn't think that there's anything wrong with sledging there against the West Indies, of course, in Grenada. Where do you stand on it all? I mean, they've tried to ban it, they tried to enforce some kind of rules, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Well, sledging's an interesting one, isn't it? Because allegedly it's always been part of the sport.
Yeah.
And, people don't want to take away some of the romance which maybe goes along with cricket, but it's how romantic sledging is. I don't know whether it actually adds to the off-field experience or the entertainment that people get, but if it changes the result, then we have to look at why it's changing the result and what you're saying if you're sledging.
Yeah, well, we don't know what they're actually saying, but it just gives it an edge, doesn't it?
Well, there are some fairly horrific stories of what people have said while they've been sledging. Obviously, I can't tell.
But, yeah.
but obviously, there's also a certain amount of gamesmanship which goes into cricket, and it being a gentleman's sport, in inverted commas.
What is a gentleman's sport these days, though? Is anyone really a gentleman?
What does gentleman mean nowadays? It's a pretty superannuated term in that sense, and so especially within cricket now, which is becoming more commercial as well.
Yeah, especially with the 2020 format as well.
And there being more microphones everywhere. Now, if you can be picked up and you can get in trouble for it, then that's probably the biggest thing.
I think they should keep it. I don't see there's anything wrong with sledging.
Yeah, don't protect your product. Just have a good time.
Just have a great time and win a game.
Yeah, exactly.
By all means necessary. Joke, not by all means necessary.
But it can something like corporate culture and bureaucracy can sometimes step on the toes of a sport actually being enjoyable.
Yeah.
And we can see the basically people bleaching a sport out because they want to take all the interesting parts out. I'm not saying offensive things is an interesting thing, but you get what I mean by that.
Yeah.
That, if you can sledge someone and it's part of the sport, it's acknowledged, then it's the same as in the NHL when they hit someone else. How far does that go?
Oh gosh, that was a full-out brawl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But again, moving on to a completely different sport again, football. And Jordan Henderson, £100,000 a week.
Yeah.
Is he worth it?
He's allegedly he's the guy on course to be the next Liverpool captain. He's picked up the armband this season from Steven Gerrard time after time. He's really improved his football under Brendan Rodgers. There are a lot of doubts around him when he was first at Liverpool. Under Kenny Dalglish, obviously, he was bought under Dalglish and bought over from the opposite coast in England.
Yes.
And now we're seeing the value of Jordan Henderson for Liverpool because of his leadership skills that he's developing under Steven Gerrard. The fact that he's English is also a huge part of it. And also that Liverpool have a great history with bringing guys from that area of the world, basically Sunderland up it seems to be Liverpool and Manchester United territory, which is good. And so there's somewhat of a club tradition there. And especially with other people not signing contracts.
Oh, yes.
It might set a good precedent.
Well, that's going to be my next question. How will this affect, you know, Raheem Sterling's contract? Because he's not going to get paid more than the supposed captain.
Well, that's the interesting side, is, you know, what value do you put on a captain? And, you know, should a captain be the most valuable player to a team? You know, it's what other things Raheem Sterling brings. And also, Jordan Henderson as a captain might need to acknowledge that there's other more important parts of the team that maybe Raheem Sterling is influencing.
Well, joining me in the studio to discuss more of the big sporting stories is my guest, the sports analyst and blogger, Lawrence McKenna. Now we have to start with the Stockholm Marathon. What were your thoughts when you actually read through the whole story?
The thoughts were that I think they were right when they said they were naive, right? Because it was a really terribly thought-out incentive. And, I mean, yeah, sure, money's a motivation for people, but it's just an awful idea, and there's no way of justifying it. It doesn't even really deserve a conversation in a sense, because they did just do something really stupid. And to think that you can, A, cut people out who are not from Nordic countries and somehow not let them win the marathon for that reason, and B, think that just because you're offered more money you'll run faster, is just a terrible idea in the first place. Is
it a way of, I can't believe I'm going to defend this, but positive discrimination, because they actually want their Nordic runners to do well? I mean, I'm sure there's another incentive somewhere, but this obviously was naive and they didn't go about it the right way. But is it a way of positive discrimination?
That's a long reach, but and I'll give you that one.
You have to look at it from both ends. I mean, I'm looking at it from, you know, devil's advocate. I mean, I can't. You're right. It's, you're looking at the story and you're thinking, why would you even come up with that? But they're trying to push their athletes through.
Yeah, but then they're doing it the wrong way. Then invest the money that you'd essentially be paying your athletes in the winning into training them better or doing something like that. Because just because someone's offered more money doesn't mean they're going to run faster. And secondly, it does strike somewhat as not so much positive discrimination, considering the previous winners of the competition. And therefore, I think you're probably right to be cynical and critical of it. It just doesn't make any sense, does it?
It doesn't make any sense. Well, let's move on to something that does make sense.
Yeah.
Money Mayweather, the big fight is next week. Excited?
Yeah, sure. I'm excited.
OK, the fact that you had to pause and think about that. But who do you think's going to come out on top in that one?
That's an interesting question. I'd like to see money. Head says Mayweather, heart says Pacquiao, doesn't it?
Why?
Well, mainly because Pacquiao looks to be presented as the underdog to the American public. It's in Vegas. It would be wonderful if Pacquiao could go to Vegas and take on Mayweather there. There's somewhat of a nice idea that... Did Mayweather compare himself to some of the greatest boxers?
Well, he did. He said that, I've actually got the quote, he used the press conference to claim that he's a superior fighter to Muhammad Ali and regarded as one of the greatest heavyweight boxers in history. So can you see why he's actually, you know, said that? Or is it just him shooting his mouth off again? I
mean, that's part of boxing, really, isn't it? Is psychologically building yourself up. We'll obviously never know, because he'll never get to fight Muhammad Ali, which is one of the great things that you can say. But then, I mean, what you would say is, Mayweather, you had a very different social influence on people to the social influence that someone of a very completely different ilk would have had on those kind of people. You call yourself Floyd Money Mayweather, and, you know, there are other boxers who maybe mean a bit more to people, but, you know, that's just a personal view, I think.
Lawrence, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Right, now let's take a look at what's been getting the world sporting attention on social media today. A UK-based designer has received torrents of abuse online after he created a new design for the Bolivian national football kit. Have a look at this, Lawrence. The away shirt was inspired by Bolivia's rainbow-coloured Rapala flag. The flag represents the indigenous Andean population, but the non-indigenous population aren't happy. And we thought it was just an issue of taste. And who says baseball isn't contact sport? No one can say that this runner in this clip isn't committed. Have a look at this. Oh,
all the way around.
I know, right? And now on to our most valuable player, and Lawrence, I will want your views on this as well. Tonight, we've gone for Javier Hernandez, the forgotten man of Manchester United, who made an impact for his lone club, Real Madrid, last night, scoring the all-important winner over Atletico in the Champions League. Now, for some years, Chicharito has struggled to get a starting place, but here on the Global Sports Report, we like a man whose statistics speak for themselves, and this guy has goal scoring in his DNA. By 2014, he had the 4th best goals per minute in the Premier League history, and even during his infrequent appearances for Real Madrid, he has managed just under a goal a game. Even so, we hear he'll be returning to the bench when Real's big guns are back. Do you think he's got a shot?
Well, he's certainly got a great shot, hasn't he? He's one of those players, I think he's called super sub sometimes. You know, he's a much bigger icon if you go to Mexico. And not only that, but he has been a great impact player over the years. And I think that's a real niche role that's sort of coming through in modern football. It's maybe not respected as much, A, in England, and B, in La Liga and possibly certain countries on the continent. But Carlo Ancelotti...
he's done something to him. He's brought something out.
A very experienced coach, using him to the best.